me remember
Not
the name of
Gratiot Drive-In. No, that would have been, no.
It was on, it was on Gratiot by Hall Road.
That's great.
Yeah? Is that what it was called?
God.
And that was right around maybe half a mile from my house. It was not the most enjoyable experience, but it was free.
I love it. All right. Are we rolling?
Yeah.
Okay.
He has a habit of sneaking that up on us.
I know.
Now I know not to trust no one.
This is 2 J's in a Pod. I'm Mary Ellen Murphy from WGHN Radio.
And I'm Sarah Leach from the Ottawa News Network.
Just a quick wrap-up of the Coast Guard parade. Your son was the beach banana. He did an amazing job.
He was so cute.
He's awesome. There's pictures all over. He did a great job. And your kids know how to talk to adults, and that's always been a thing with me. Mm-hmm. And so good job, Mom. I just wanted to say that. I wanted to say that. Good job, Mom.
Well, I haven't baby talked since the toddlerhood because frankly, I just don't have it in me. So I talk to them like mini adults.
Lots to get to. Your daughter Harper celebrated her birthday.
Mm-hmm. Are we yesterday? Yeah.
How old? Double digits now?
We are now in double digits.
Double digits now. And you went to Detroit for a Katy Perry show. You were there the night that a fan collapsed on stage.
I know. I've never seen anything like that in my life.
That was nuts.
And I was at the third manifestation of Woodstock during the riots.
Wait a minute. You did?
But this was almost scarier because this was a girl. She couldn't have been more than 13.
Oh, boy.
And so as part of the shtick, and side note, this is the first time that I've been to a major pop star's concert,
okay.
Right? And I knew in general what to expect, but the level that they go to now, I mean, it's pyrotechnics, it's, you're swinging from wires over the crowd.
She's doing all kinds of stuff.
Involved.
Yeah.
I mean, she's upside down, spinning around, still singing, and hats off to entertainers these days. And there's a whole storyline and whatever. So about midway through the show, there's this, there was actually a poll that shows up on the screens, and you had to scan the QR code, and you actually could vote on which deep cut track Katy performed. Which is, I had never seen anything like this. And so she's like, did you guys vote? Did you guys vote? And so there was a list of 3, and they were prepared to do whatever the thing was that the crowd picked. So then she brings up these young fans. There were 4 of them. And they come up, and she, asks them their name, and, they hug, and then, okay, well, we're going to go over here, and you're going to help me sing this song. Well, one of these girls was very shy. I mean, from the get-go, she gets up on the stage and she's covering her face with her hands, and
you could just tell, yeah.
You could tell that she was very, very nervous. And so Katy tries to assure her, and she says, "Hey, just take some deep breaths. We're just going to have fun. We want your light to shine." It was very sweet. So she kind of brings her over to where the other group of kids are. And they're handing out those little Moroccan handshaker things. The camera zoomed right in on this poor girl, and she went down like a sack of potatoes.
Yeah, she did.
And everyone was like, "Oh, God!" And so we're in the nosebleed section of the arena. But I mean, when you go from full on audio in a crowd of 30,000 people in Little Caesars Arena to silence, it is very jarring. Wow. And so everything just went dead quiet. And so she was fine. She just ended up, passing out. But then you have to wait for the medics to come onto the stage. You got to take her off on a stretcher. Katy does this little prayer circle with the other kids afterward. Just, we're praying for McKenna, and the crowd was chanting McKenna. And
oh my gosh!
And I'm trying to explain to the girls,
to your young
what's
daughters,
happening.
Yeah.
And my aunt is with us, and I mean. God bless her, but I'm not sure that she's been to a concert since 1982. So she's also just very confused, and I'm trying to explain it to her on a different level about what's happening in general, let alone this very succinct moment. So yeah, it was a journey. Let's just say it was a journey.
And then you went to the drive-in last night in Muskegon, right?
I know.
The Getty drive-in?
We have had a whirlwind of a week. But yes, so the kids and I go at least 2 to 3 times a summer because I went to the drive-in as a kid. There's only 2 left in the state that I am aware of. And we're blessed to have one that's up in Muskegon. So, we have the luxury of being able to go. But I love, getting them all packed up. And frankly, I hurt for a couple days because, I'm pushing 50, and folding yourself up like a lawn chair you can't shake it off as fast as you used to.
It's a late night, though.
But it is, but it's summer.
Yeah.
And as long as you plan on it. I think it's a great experience, and that it's memories that I had that I can pass down to them.
My daughters.
Hopefully drive-ins exist when they have kids.
They have the best memories. One time I got up to go work at WHDC in Holland, and I had to be there pretty early, so I'm up at about 2 a.m. And I'm up and I'm getting ready, and I look out on the driveway, and my car's not there. My kids aren't home. I knew that they were out. They're at the drive-in. And then...
Wait, at 2? Isn't it over by 1?
They're at the drive-in,
okay.
or they're at Taco Bell.
Okay.
And I'm like, you better get your ass home. Now I got to be on the radio. I get home that day, they're still in bed when I got home. Now, granted, they were working. They weren't lazy teenagers, but they went to the drive-in, then they went to a friend's house, then they went to Taco Bell. I had to get to work. They had my car.
And I remember when I had that kind of stamina to pull an all-nighter.
I know. And then I get home from work that afternoon. They're still in bed, but that's fine. They were working. But the drive-in is a late night. So my twins turned 27 yesterday, which was awesome. I saw one of them. I'll see him on Saturday.
Wait, they have the same birthday as Harper?
Yeah, the 5th.
Oh wow.
Yeah. August 5th.
Oh, I don't think I remembered knowing that.
Although they were due on Halloween, so they were born pretty early.
Yes.
Anyway, all right. I had Phil Kyers on the radio show this morning. He talked about how they're going to need to build another pod for the jail. They don't have enough room anymore. And he said that unfortunately, they're seeing a lot of people with mental illness being put in jail because there's no place for them to go, and that broke my heart.
Well, I mean, in a lot of ways, this is sort of, I think everyone has known that this is an issue, right? That the majority of acute crisis calls tend to have something involving either somebody with a mental health issue or a drug and alcohol, which often is paired with mental health issues.
Okay.
I was at the Sentinel. We wrote a lot of stories about how police are actually trained to, de-escalate, how to avoid any kind of hands-on, violent tactics, because that tends to never work out very well for both parties. It's really tragic, but unfortunately, from the national level down to the state and county level, we really aren't investing enough into mental health resources, like from top to bottom. I mean, we do it when it's acute and it's a crisis, and we have to, step in when it's already gotten to that point. But we're not doing preventative care. We're not, giving people the resources that they need so that they don't end up in a situation where they're facing the cops.
Right.
And that's really frustrating to me, is that we're not prioritizing it on the front end, and then we're dumping all this money in on the back end, and it just doesn't make any sense to me.
I have a friend who, his daughter died by suicide. His other daughter has some mental health issues, and she's not able to work full time, so she's on Medicaid in order to, receive the treatment and the medicine, and he is literally terrified. Yeah. When he talks to me about it, tears well in it just breaks my heart. He's terrified about what's going to happen to his daughter. This is going to happen nationwide, you guys.
Right. I mean, there's not a whole lot of answers. We've heard a lot about this at the Community Mental Health Board over the last couple of years. A lot of people that were nominated by the Ottawa Impact Group, to their credit, did kind of elevate this conversation. I'm taking care of a special needs daughter or son, and I don't know what's going to happen. I will say that we need to be having these conversations when we're looking at putting that millage renewal for the county for mental health funding. We need to be having that conversation now, because that comes up for renewal in 2026. We need to figure out how to allocate some of those dollars to helping people because not everyone can get into Benjamin's Hope. Right, down in Holland. I mean, that is a very exclusive place. There's a waiting list a mile long, and we need more facilities like that. But it takes a ton of money in order to establish facilities like that, where you have a campus and you have, round-the-clock staff. I mean, that is multi-million-dollar level, like constant funding level type of investment.
I'm grateful for places like the Momentum Center that they exist.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a little bit of a juxtaposition there, right? Because, I just mentioned how, the Ottawa Impact Group sort of, elevated this discussion, but you also see a little bit of a contradiction there when they tended to demonize the Momentum Center many times, saying that people with mental health issues should not be cross-pollinating with people with disabilities, and that's bad for some reason. And even though that point has been clarified to death, that is not really happening, it's still a big sticking point with them, and it's really frustrating to have both of those things coming from the same political perspective. It just doesn't make any sense.
You're right. We're going to see this nationwide with these Medicaid cuts, you guys. It's.
Well, again, I think you have to break the system in order for people to realize the value of the system. And you and I talked a little bit about this last week before we started recording, but I saw an interview with Pete Buttigieg, and he was, he's one of the favored Democrats, always has been. I don't think that he's really seriously going to be considered for national office yet, but he is a really good spokesperson for the party because he's reasonable. He's not just trying to stick to any kind of like platform points. Like he's real, he's genuine, and he's convincing. And he said, my frustration with Democrats is that they accept the status quo, that these programs are untouchable, above reproach, and can never be questioned. And so, they're just perfect, which we all know they weren't perfect before any of this happened. He says there's room for that conversation. And so instead of just throwing up your hands and doing the Chicken Little routine, think about how you're going to build it back better when you get your chance. And, if that's three years from now, or if it's beyond at midterms or whatever, start thinking about how you're going to do it in a way where it's not set up to be dismantled again by the opposing party who criticizes it. Start strategizing. Right. Stop complaining.
Right.
So I do think that some of it is, eventually healthy. It's kind of like when we were going through the Ottawa Impact era, and at the county level, everything was terrible for a long time, but I kept on saying, but it's not going to be forever. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and in some ways it's good to have some conversations about some of these programs and services and policies, because then you can have a rational conversation that justifies, okay, why do we need this? What are we going to do about that? How are we going to fix this? And it tends to come out better than it was originally.
Okay. That's a good way to look at it. I appreciate that. What was your take? I did not watch all of the meeting. You and I were texting back and forth. It was a long meeting yesterday at the Fillmore Street complex. What's your take on that?
Well, there was no fighting, so that was encouraging. There was a really long budget presentation, capital improvement plans, explained. Nothing that was super out of left field. There was a series of questions by the commissioners afterward. The questions tended to come from the Ottawa Impact commissioners, which is no real surprise. They tend to say, explain to me more, make me understand this. The moderates tend to just, kind of sit there and just take it all in. And I think, because they've been through these processes before, and there's still this sort of freshman year quality to some of the Ottawa Impact Commissioners' approach to things. So by and large, there was no real red flags. Like you said, to the point of the jail, we need mental health pods. It looks like we're going to keep in-house legal counsel as an in-house position, which I found interesting because, there's been some debate about whether or not that's, a good strategy and or is it realistic? Because that's sort of a dying classification of lawyer. Right. Not everyone's going into, governmental law.
Doesn't sound fun to me.
If ever.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, newspaper journalists were a dying breed. But they do have it still structured the same way. There was a little bit of a wisecrack from Chair Teeples about, must be all those legal fees, that
lawsuits.
Yeah. And, to Joe Moss chuckles. So, yeah.
I told Commissioner Kyers, he was talking about the communications position that they're going to be hiring for. I told him I should apply for it.
Yes.
I said that on the air.
And that's another one that I actually kind of watched that unfold, and I was waiting for maybe a thing to happen after that conversation. So For those of you who didn't want to sit through that entire YouTube video, they're talking about having an in-house communication specialist that would serve all of the departments that don't already have a dedicated public information officer. So in this case, I think it's only the sheriff and the health department, just because the volume and the critical urgency and nature of the information that they're getting out, they need dedicated people. But let's create a position where these other department heads, maybe they're doing a promotion, but it's, once every quarter. So you don't need a full-time person. So we're going to share a person. Great idea. Great on efficiency. But what I was waiting to happen afterward is the Ottawa Impact Commissioners asking and maybe kind of like trying to ferret out in a way that only they can. Where they ask questions that sort of insinuates that there's an ulterior motive for asking for things. Because they were very critical of the health department having its own dedicated
for crying out loud
public information officer. While they were trying to fire Adeline Hambley, this was a thing over and over again that, the person who's currently over there, Allison Clark, who's fantastic, by the way. I mean, she's
I agree.
She's a true professional, but she's also just a class act.
Yeah.
And so we were really worried that position was going to get cut at the tail end of the OI era.
Okay.
And it didn't. Thankfully, because I do, even if Allison wasn't in that position, it's not necessarily about the person who fills it, but the position itself is critical. But thankfully, that talking point did not come up, and we just sort of breezed past that.
I should have asked Commissioner Kyers this. Think about that new communications position. Is this person hired through HR, or do they have to deal with the Board of Commissioners? Because if you got to deal with the Board of Commissioners, you're going to have them looking back at your social media for the last 15 years.
Well, I gotta tell you that they do have this policy where they do a social media check already.
Okay.
That's already built into the HR stuff, and I know this because when Jordan Epperson was hired, all of his problematic social media stuff came up, and it didn't get. There was one post, I think, on Twitter where I think he was holding a gun or something that got flagged in his background search. And I don't know exactly off the top of my head what program they use or what service that they use to search this stuff, but a lot of problematic posts were still live when he was hired that we were able to find and that we reposted and that was not flagged by the county's process. So I'm not necessarily sure that this is the most thorough of searches. I'm not criticizing the HR department, but
no, but what is problematic for you and I may not be problematic for the 4 OI commissioners if they think that they need to interview somebody for a communications position. And I told Commissioner Kyers, I said, you're going to have a ton of TV people apply for that because that's what TV people and radio people are doing now. If they have a journalism degree or a communications degree, they're working for the hospitals. They're working in PR.
Well, one of the things that I am sort of waiting to hear because it's the next logical step. Like, let's say we have this position approved in the budget and it's filled. There is a standing policy right now that was passed in 2023 when John Gibbs was the administrator. And it was to control all of the communications from county departments.
That's right.
And that still stands to this day.
That's right.
Where they all had to funnel whatever messaging that they wanted to put out had to be approved by the administration's, the administrator office. And so that's the big question that I have. Are they quietly going to allow this policy to stand? Because I think this conversation gives the impression that departments will be able to reach out to the public and effectively give them their message. But if this policy is still in place, you're getting the filtered version of whatever the administration or the county wants you to know.
That's exactly.
And I worry about, as a journalist, that's problematic for me.
It is.
From a PR perspective, I get it.
Jeez. I wonder how John Gibbs is doing these days.
Well, he's back in Washington in the Department of Housing.
His bio doesn't say that he was fired from Ottawa County.
Well, remember, that was part of the settlement.
I
is
know.
that they had to act like it didn't happen, and I'm like looking at these 17,000 news articles and
for crying out loud, what a mess.
Radio stories, and I'm like, oh, so we're just going to pretend like reality doesn't exist. Okay, is water still wet?
What a mess. I don't know. I don't know how to get out of this. I thought this was interesting. The White House is accepting applications for holiday volunteers. They don't want to pay anybody to decorate. They want you to volunteer your time and do
Are we
it.
already talking about Christmas?
Why
What is happening?
Why are you getting volunteers to decorate the White House between November 24th and the 30th? They also want musicians, choirs, and entertainers to volunteer their time to perform in December.
I'm surprised that you haven't brought up the $200 million ballroom that Trump
please.
wants to put in.
For crying out loud.
After we just cut all of this, government waste, it's like, let's put gold leaf on the walls.
It's so tacky. It's so tacky. He's not answering any questions about Epstein. And now that the CBS News was reporting that Ghislaine, in her recent testimony, did not say that Donald Trump was involved at all. Of course she didn't. She wants a pardon. They're basically spitting in these victims' faces what they're doing.
And the House has subpoenaed, they want records that pertain to just the Clintons, and anything, any information that they can provide. While, simultaneously, Trump is just, no, I'm not in any file. What file? What's a file?
I think, this is my opinion, I think Melania is probably in the files too.
You think so?
Well, I think it's interesting that suddenly she ended up in the United States as a model and worked for modeling agencies that Epstein was involved with. And I find it interesting.
Maybe he introduced them.
I believe he did, actually.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, I think he did. I'm not 100% sure on that, but what a mess. What a mess.
Going back to the conversation that we've had before, it's so absurd that I can't take this man seriously.
I know.
I mean, I just look at him and it's like watching a cartoon. And I watched a lot of them in the 80s, and this is definitely, in the genre.
I have a friend that is very, very far right and supports President Trump, and we're supposed to have lunch in November, and
you plan out your lunches that far out?
Okay.
I don't know what I'm doing today.
After the election, we made a bet, and I said, if the country's in a good place, I'll buy lunch. If the country's in a bad place, you'll buy lunch.
How do you gauge that?
Well, we'll gauge it by the economy and everything else.
Okay.
So I recently, we were messaging back and forth, and I'm like, wow, things are just, I've heard a lot of things about J.D. Vance, and aren't you afraid that, he's trying to, that something's going to happen to Trump and J.D.'s going to be right there? And everything that I said about Ghislaine, about Epstein, his response was, let's just see how it plays out. Because he knows things are not good right now in Washington.
There's not very many defendable points right now. And,
no.
And to be fair, we're in it now, so I guess we do have to see how it plays out to a certain extent. It's not like we can do anything about it. We're here.
I was waiting for something like, yeah, he's probably in the files, or yeah, that's bad, or yeah, you're right. No. Let's just see how it plays out. That's your standard response to everything.
Well, I saw a clip, I think it was on CNN this week, that his polling numbers are pretty low, and
that's a lie. Look, my dentist told me I needed a root canal, so you know what I did? I called the American Dental Association and found another dentist who told me that my teeth are fine. So come on.
Well, so he's kind of trying to spin this in a way that again only benefits him and defies reality, but. I find it interesting that he's in the lowest tier of all presidents of all time. Right now, he's competing with himself in terms of the lowest, poll numbers in the last, 30 years. He's doing better than Nixon did. But when you're using Richard Nixon as a benchmark, the bar's pretty low.
Boy.
Bar's pretty low.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's all over the place. I can't even keep up anymore. It's all over the place. And I listen to the Progressive Channel. I listen to Megyn Kelly. I listen to Glenn Beck. I listen to all media, and I still can't make sense of it.
Yeah, but I think so one of the things that I do is I don't really consume a lot of that news. And it's not that I'm not paying attention to what's going on. I know how this is going to sound as a journalist because I literally preach to people to not do this. But I feel like because I'm a journalist, I can do it, not to toot my own horn, but I can do it better than the average person because I know, kind of like the game. Mm-hmm. I'm a shallow surface reader.
Okay.
I get what I need to understand what happened. If I want to, dive deeper, then I will search it out on sources that I want to hear about. But, when you're listening to radio shows and pundits in particular, they have a way of injecting emotion into you that elicits an emotional response. And
Right.
I just don't have that kind of emotional bandwidth, and it stresses me out.
I got it.
Because
Okay.
even if I'm agreeing with what the person is saying, it makes me frustrated that whatever it is that they're saying, I can't make happen.
Got it.
And then there's
Okay.
like this sense of, frustration and unfulfillment, and that's not a positive experience either.
Oh, that makes sense. I guess I have a long commute, so it's just, I don't listen to terrestrial radio. The only show I'd listen to is mine and Jesse's, and, that's it. But I have that long commute, so I think that's why I tend to do that. I pick and I choose. But I don't know if you saw this. WZZM, one of their meteorologists, put out a post saying goodbye to a lot of the people that have worked there, because a lot of these guys, and they tend to be guys that have worked there for 30, 40 years, today was their last day.
Wow. How
That's-
many people are we talking
I
about?
believe about 7.
Wow.
Yeah. That might have just been for the morning show.
Right.
That might have just been for the morning show, guys. So I don't know if I don't know how many crews. And then you saw that Fox 17 is kind of rearranged. What was up with that? Why
Yeah.
would you take Matt, who has covered Ottawa County for so long, and move him?
Yeah. So Matt and I are friends. We kind of trauma bonded through the OI era. And
This is Matt from Fox 17.
Yes,
What is his
yeah.
last name?
Whitkos.
Thank you.
Yes. And yeah, he sometimes we talk, we would kind of like bounce story ideas off of one another, and we would be very respectful of each other. If he was pursuing an angle and I was considering it, I would let, okay, no, you can have that story, because I don't want to duplicate somebody else's work. And
right.
there's enough content to go around. But he really found it challenging to be in all places at all times. He's like, Sarah, I don't know how you do it. And I said, well, I have no life and I work from home. You're just constantly talking to people and consuming it. But when you are able to dedicate the majority of your waking hours to one topic, I mean, yeah, you're going to be a little bit, more successful. But in the TV game, you have to have a certain mixture of stories. You have to be productive. I'm not saying quotas, but you have to produce something each day, and that can be really challenging when you're trying to cover a topic like Ottawa County. How do you boil that down into a 30-second, 60-second news clip when you got 13-hour meetings and all of that stuff? So it's tragic that they took him off of that, because I know that there were times that they probably passed on stories because they either didn't want to give him enough time to tell it in the correct way, or they thought, there's so much negative news that's coming out of Ottawa County, we don't want to bum out the viewership. I can 100% see how that would happen in a TV station planning session.
You're right. That's true. And also with TV, if you and I are working from home or whatever, we can be in our pajamas. We can have a top knot on our head.
I'm in sweatpants right now.
Right. We can. We don't. It's different with TV.
Yeah.
But I believe now he's covering Kent County, which is a win for me because that's where I live. So
well, and he happens to live in Grand Rapids too. So,
I like him a lot.
So there is less of a commute. But he really became attached to this. I mean, this was really fulfilling work for him.
Oh, I'm sure.
I don't know if you saw that post that he put out on Facebook.
I did.
It was like, like a goodbye love letter, and I got really sad about it.
Yeah.
And he told me that he was going to write it, and I didn't know when he was going to post it. But I said, I'll support you all the way, and you did a great job, and maybe we can, collaborate in the future.
Yeah. I think we're going to see a lot of this across the country. We know that there's going to be cuts with NPR and PBS. I just want to say something that's really been bothering me, and I may sound like a child right now, but for 25 years, I've watched my industry fall apart. And
Can relate.
And nobody cares. Bill Clinton signed the Telecommunications Act. That allowed non-broadcasters to buy up media all over the country. Is it fair that Clear Channel owns the majority of the radio stations in this country? No, it's not fair. The product is crap. But I do the job of 5 people right now. That's just the way broadcasting is. And everybody's up in arms about NPR and PBS, and it's like, you guys, this has been happening.
Yeah, where have you been? Yeah.
Where have you been? This has been happening to us for 25 years. Every 6 months. Radio Inc. or another one of those rags, you'll see something on social media where Clear Channel or Odyssey fired 1,000 people. It happens all the time.
Yep.
So I'm sorry. I worked for NPR, and there were so many people on staff, they were falling over each other. So I don't know what the situation is locally, but if they can restructure some things and maybe some of the people have to do the job of 2 or 3 people. I've been doing that for 25 years, you guys.
Yep. Well, again,
and it really bothers me.
I don't think that we've talked about this on so many topics. People don't care until they are personally affected by something.
Right.
It's like,
right.
oh, well, I listen to WGVU on the way into work. And what does this mean for me? It's like, well, how did you not see this coming? It's been talked about for months, and now it's actually happening. And people, they tend to stick their head in the sand until they have, skin in the game. And then all of a sudden they're outraged. But by then it's too late. It's, well, now you're going to have to contribute more in terms of, the fundraising drives that they have in order to keep whatever programming that is that you like. But I will say that in the national broadcasting arena, I think, I've been a member off and on, depending on my life phase and where I've lived. But and I was a Sesame Street kid. I grew up on Sesame Street, and so it holds a special place in my heart. But I do think that they have a messaging problem. I've listened to the fundraising drive messaging for years and decades, and it tends to really appeal to a certain type of demographic. It tends to be the affluent, the educated, the progressive. And honestly, they should have been trying to broaden the strategy of what happens when there's a tsunami warning in, Alaska and Hawaii. Like, this is not just us bringing the stories of the people, which is a very, noble, altruistic goal.
Yeah.
This is also a critical life service for all of us. Like, in emergencies, you will need us. You want to make sure that this is in place. Like, you have to,
you're right.
You have to appeal to the practical.
That's a really good point. Now, when I was over there, they had an oldies station, so that may be why there were so many people on staff. It just seemed, I was the only female, so I always, the token female. I've been the token female my whole career. And so, but I mean, I love Shelley Irwin. I listen to WGVU. Our engineer works there. All I'm saying is that our industry has gone through this for the last 25 years and nobody cared. And your industry as well. And now everybody's up in arms about NPR. But like you say, until it happens to them.
Yeah, it's like the news deserts with the newspapers, right? It's like all of a sudden the local paper closes. Well, wait, where am I getting my news? Well, I don't know. You saw us, being starved to death out by these conglomerates, and you watched us die. I don't really know what to tell you.
Yeah.
And now it's up to these upstarts like. What I'm doing with Iowa News
What
Network.
you're doing is so important.
And there's this other organization that I work with. It's called the Michigan Independent Media Group, and they are buying up these weekly newspapers because these teeny tiny weeklies in these predominantly rural areas, they tend to have been family owned and operated for generations, and the owners are looking to retire, and they have no one to sell to, and no one really wants to get into newspapers these days because most people make better life choices than me, and. So what MIM is doing is raising private dollars in order to purchase these, to keep them operating, to keep them solvent, and just to have that local news presence. And it's really exciting to see anyone really take this seriously because that's a passion project for me. But I mean, I have no money. I've been in the liberal arts all my life. I am, I make enough to live, but it's not like I'm I'm not rich. And so it's really nice to see people who actually have, connections to those sorts of resources to actually dedicate their time.
That's good.
To recognize the value of it.
That's promising.
Yeah.
News like that is promising. All right, I'm not going to change gears. I always say that. I'm going to change gears.
You know what really grinds my gears?
Well, this is what somebody will do in radio when they can't go from one thought to the next. They'll say, hey, everybody, it's 12:34 on a Wednesday afternoon. Why are all Circle K gas stations shit shows? Every single one I go to, either there's something going on inside.
That was one hell of a segue.
or in the parking lot, you guys. Every single one I go to, and I don't know. And I've always been in a situation where I got to get gas right then and there. So there it is, and I just every time. 2 times this week there was something going on outside, and then the other time
like
there was
a kerfuffle or
like a kerfuffle, and people scream. I don't know what it is. I don't care what neighborhood. I don't care what state you're in.
They're kind of like a Waffle House.
There you go. There you go.
Great reference.
The best coffee, and I love the coffee mugs at the Waffle House. They're all stained and nasty.
God. I grew up around a lot of 7-Elevens, and it's...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where they would have, like, the weird sweaty meat roller thing.
Ew.
And, yeah.
And there's always that smell in those gas stations. You walk in and you're like, oh, hi. How you doing?
Can you imagine working there, like, coming home smelling like that?
No, I'm thinking of something else. I'm thinking of one of those places. Well, you get off on the expressway, like at the end of the state going into Illinois. You get off at the expressway and you can buy things. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, I love those things. Why don't we have those?
No, you're not talking about the same thing.
See, I'm talking about the rest stops where they have the gas stations and like the
Oh, those are on turnpikes. No, this is something where you have to be over 18 to get into the
Oh,
store.
you're talking about that kind of store.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we're out.
I got you.
I think we should wrap
Yeah,
this up.
There are children present.
Yeah, we're done. Piper.
You got to take us out.
She looks just like you.